Imagine running a loan shark business with straight-up daylight robbery interest rates. To top it off, your borrower is literally a notorious dark cult packed with heavy hitters who love choosing violence. Talk about a high-risk, high-return play, or just pure insanity. Well, the grace period is officially over. Time's up, and the ultimate collection deity is pulled up. Suit on, briefcase in hand, homeboy casually strolls into the lion's den, ready to handle business by the book. Seeing just one guy walk in, the cult squad starts flexing hard, thinking they can easily ghost the debt. But our guy just cold-bloodedly pulls out the contract with a smirk like, "Who do you think you are clowning, bro? Thinking a little kung fu is enough to catch hands with a pro? Delusional." Our guy takes on the whole block, and with just a flick of his wrist, the whole squad gets wiped out in a blink. They did not even have time to breathe. Karma never misses. No cash to pay? Then your decades of cultivation are officially repossessed. Our guy activates his draining skill, giving the big boss a taste of getting completely rinsed, principal and interest included. Debt collected successfully, radiating pure main character energy. He drops a flexing business card so they know who ran them their money, then dusts his suit and steps out without breaking a sweat. Clean and absolute. Reliability builds the brand. We always show love to our VIP clients. So, anyone here running low on cash and want to test the waters? Satisfaction guaranteed. The story opens with a sky full of dark smoke and fire, and beneath it, a massive army is waiting. Talk about setting the stage for some serious action. Soldiers stand in complete silence, holding their banners high as the wind whips around them. Their eyes are fixed ahead, waiting for that one command to turn the whole world upside down. The sun rises over the battlefield, casting a golden glow on the troops. At the high platform, a figure sits majestically with sunlight blazing behind him, every soldier's gaze locked onto him. He is lounging on a chair, legs crossed, hand resting on his chin, wearing a cold, untouchable expression. Classic villain pose. Then he opens his mouth and says, "What a majestic sight. Now that is some serious main character energy." A hooded subordinate steps forward, hands clasped, and shouts, "Loyalty!" The whole courtyard echoes with that word. The same subordinate continues, praising the cult leader's guidance, claiming the cult's prestige has reached the heavens and that the central plains will soon kneel before them. The cult leader laughs and simply says, "Yes, as they should." And that is our grand introduction to Wi Jicheon, the heavenly demon. But the subordinate hesitates. However, cult leader, I have a question. Jicheon gives him a curt nod to speak about those incredibly expensive-looking gears we are all wearing. He gestures around at the fancy equipment. Treasury hit rock bottom a long time ago. Just where did you manage to secure such massive funds? Jicheon casually sips his tea and drops the bomb. Someone lent it to us. The subordinate's jaw practically drops. Excuse me. Some guy offered to lend us the money. Jicheon adds with a shrug, while the subordinate is just full-on question marks. The guy is completely baffled, saying no one in their right mind would lend money to the demonic cult, because obviously they'd just take the money and run. He sweats bullets. Then his face lights up with a sudden realization. Which means there is only one logical explanation. He shouts, as if he has cracked some secret code, as expected of the heavenly demon. They must have been in absolute awe of your martial prowess and character. No, the banks of the Central Plains were completely terrified. Grinning like he has got it all figured out, he claims the banks voluntarily offered up their war funds as tribute, bleeding the enemy dry without shedding a single drop of blood. He is truly in awe of this big brain move, but Jicheon shuts that down hard, leaving the subordinate completely confused. Then Jicheon mutters, "What kind of crazy bastard actually handed us money?" But Jicheon immediately shot down that theory, saying, "Tesk, I am not a thug. Do you really think I just extorted them?" Leaving the guy completely baffled. Jicheon rummaged inside his robe, searching for something. He pulled out a piece of paper and showed it to his subordinate. "All I had to do was stamp my thumbprint right here, and they wired the money immediately." The guy's jaw dropped. He said his name was Manager Kim. "Very agreeable fellow," Jicheon added casually. "He waived the debt note, even told me he'd give us a low interest rate." The subordinate stared at the contract in disbelief. "They lent us a fortune just trusting a single piece of paper." Then the guy's eyes went wide as he spotted a special clause. The parchment read, "In the event of default, the debtor's internal energy will be seized." The subordinate stood there dumbfounded, question marks practically floating over his head. In the event of default. They'll seize his internal energy? Moreover, the repayment date is today. He was sweating bullets now. The guy was drenched in sweat, trying to force some words out. He put on a fake smile and said, Is today contract? So even if the due date is today, contract, it does not mean a damn thing. Jicheon calmly pocketed the debt note. The left envoy of light truly has a good eye. Exactly. Once we win the war, we can just bestow some gold back to this manager Kim. As expected from the heavens of the central plains, the heaven above heavens, spoken like the true heavenly demon of the holy cult. The guy was laying the flattery on thick. Jicheon burst out laughing, his bearded mouth wide open. Ha 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 ha. He drew his sword. Yes. From the high platform, he raised his blade toward the sky, his eyes locked onto his army below. I am the heavens, he declared, his sword gleaming against the clouds. Pillage and burn everything. Starting today, we are the absolute rulers of the central plains. He pointed the sword forward and roared, Go! The hooded subordinates clasped their hands behind their backs and spoke, As you command, they shouted in unison. Then, in the blink of an eye, the subordinates vanished, disappearing like shadows. Down below, the fully equipped soldiers roared with a thunderous cry, their morale shaking the very heavens. From above, the sight of tens of thousands of soldiers shouting in unison was truly magnificent. The army began to move, kicking up dust so thick it blotted out the sky, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the mountains. Jicheon clasped his hands behind his back, watching his army with an arrogant expression. He plopped back down onto his chair, crossing his legs in a relaxed pose. Jicheon calmly sipped his tea, as if enjoying a grand spectacle. He let out a relaxed sigh, thoroughly savoring the tea. Suddenly, two voices broke the silence, calling out to Jicheon. Yeah, this is the stuff. Hello there, valued customer. Jicheon, mid-sip, choked and spat out his tea. Who is there? Huh. He shot up from his seat and spun around to find a man and a woman walking toward him. Before Jicheon stood a man with a gentle, benevolent smile, and beside him a girl with soft blue eyes and flowing hair, the picture of grace. They both looked at Jicheon with friendly expressions. Once his shock faded, Jicheon thought, that guy, the one who lent me the money. But wait, he thought, stunned. Did he just approach my back, without me seeing a damn thing? Heavenly Demon Wi Jicheon, an absolute master vying for the title of the strongest under the heavens. His senses are so sharp, he would not miss the sound of a single leaf falling across 100,000 mountains. With his hands clasped, the man bowed apologetically. Sorry to startle you, he said, his tone as smooth as silk. He continued, We met briefly when we processed your loan last time, right? Jicheon eyed him warily, thinking, that is the most polite greeting imaginable. But his instincts were screaming a warning. His master's instincts were screaming, This guy is dangerous. Jicheon demanded, Who the hell are you? The man replied cheerfully, I just told you. I am Manager Kim. He raised a ledger, introducing himself properly. Manager Kim handed the ledger to the girl beside him. Customer, you are aware that today is your loan's maturity date, right? The girl put on her glasses, ready for work. Classic professional sidekick move. She held a ledger in one hand and an abacus in the other, exuding an indescribable beauty of diligence. Her fingers flew across the abacus with lightning speed. Clack, clack, clack. In an instant, the clicking stopped. She was done calculating. She quietly removed her glasses, saying nothing. Then, despite being only 1.52 meters, she leaned in and whispered into Manager Kim's ear. Is that so? Kim replied, still smiling warmly under Jicheon's glare. Manager Kim grinned broadly. Valued customer, the principal is 6,000 zironyang, plus 7,000 zironyang in interest. Jicheon stood frozen. The grand total comes to 13,000 zironyang. He exploded. Why the hell is the interest too high? How is the interest higher than the principal? Manager Kim shot back. Come on now, sir. Did you really expect a loan shark to be cheap? Jicheon's jaw dropped. Did you just say? Manager Kim shrugged. If you wanted low interest, you should have gone to a mainstream institutional bank. Why did you call us? Ouch. That is a burn. He laid it all out. Credit score, rock bottom, collateral, none, occupation, head of a violent syndicate. You know perfectly well you would not even pass a preliminary screening at a mainstream bank. The violent syndicate, Jicheon screamed. Our cult is the holy cult. Manager Kim shot back without missing a beat. To the rest of the world, you are just a bunch of demonic goons. He pressed on, explaining that the cult was an extreme risk group that could be wiped out at any moment. Who would ever lend you money? We only lent it to you because it is us. Every single word Manager Kim said was absolutely right, and Jicheon was fuming, unable to argue. Truth be told, if any bank in the Central Plains were caught dealing with the demonic cult, they'd be targeted by the righteous factions and forced to shut down. Then the girl beside Manager Kim pointed at the debt note, a contract as long as those vacation scams targeting old folks, and started talking. As part of our risk management, she said, the interest rate includes a hazard premium, and you personally signed right here on Article 4, Clause 2 of the contract. Jicheon was trembling, gritting his teeth, speechless at how he'd been tricked by these kids. He let out a long sigh, trying to regain his composure. Ha! Look here, Manager Kim. Cash on me right now? As you said, I do not have it. I will admit that, however, he pointed toward the distance. Look over there. Do you see the fertile lands of the Central Plains? I see it very clearly, Manager Kim replied, still wearing that commercial smile. Though the smog is a bit thick today. Jicheon froze. No, forget the smog. I am going to march down there right now and take over everything. Just looting the Murim Alliance's vaults alone will make a mere 13,000 zironyang look like pocket change. Give me exactly 1 month. Just wait 1 month. I will not shortchange you on the interest. I will pay back double the principal. No, triple. I promise you on my name as the Heavenly Demon. An investment that triples the principal if the conquest of the Central Plains succeeds. Manager Kim sighed, ready to state his position. But, customer, he said, his commercial smile back. We do not invest in uncertain future value. We only look at your current ability to repay. Then Manager Kim analyzed like a risk expert. And a war of conquest? Did you know statistically the success rate for that is less than 5%? The risk factor is way too high. Manager Kim calmly stepped toward Jicheon. The agreed-upon time had officially passed. Kim walked forward, face unreadable. Your proposal is denied. Kim's voice turned cold. If you do not have the money, then as per the contract, his eyes flashed red, and a sinister grin spread across his face. You'll just have to pay with your body. Dear customer. Jicheon felt an overwhelming pressure. Jicheon let out a dark laugh. Ha, you dare demand the body of I, the Heavenly Demon. Suddenly, the space fell utterly silent. Only the sound of a cold wind blowing could be heard. The girl's hair swayed gently in the wind as she glanced toward Manager Kim. Her eyes widened. The sky, once bathed in light, turned gloomy and gray, as if a storm was brewing. Jicheon's feet dug into the ground, leaving deep imprints in the stone floor. He shot Manager Kim a razor-sharp glare. A massive wave of energy erupted from Jicheon, but Kim stood with his hands clasped behind his back, completely unfazed. I am the Heavenly Demon, the absolute heavens of the demonic path. A mere mortal playing loan shark dares to covet me, Jicheon sneered. I intended to show mercy by simply giving you gold, but you are bringing death upon yourself. A dark purple energy swirled around Jicheon, pure demonic power. Kim looked uneasy at the explosive power. Ah, he cried out, staggering. Jicheon laughed. What is the matter? Scared now? But it is too late, even if you beg for your life now. Oh my God, Kim shouted, face twisting in alarm. How can you be so reckless with your internal energy? That is all seized collateral. Jicheon was utterly shocked by this response. Kim waved his hands frantically. Why are you damaging the collateral without the creditor's consent? Oh man, my God, you are just scattering all. Jicheon was absolutely furious, gripping his sword so tightly his knuckles turned white. He swung his blade at Kim, screaming, You, crazy bastard. Kim barely managed to dodge the strike, the wind from the blade grazing his face. A massive wave of energy exploded from that single slash, shaking the ground. Get torn apart like trash and die, Jicheon roared, his eyes blazing with murderous intent. He followed up immediately with another technique, the Black Knight's Denise slash, aimed straight at Kim. The sword's path carved through the earth, destroying everything in its way, sending debris flying everywhere. Kim coolly stepped back a few paces, completely unbothered. With a confident smirk, he flicked his wrist, and the blade was redirected harmlessly to the side. That redirected slash ended up slicing straight through a nearby mountain, causing the peak to crumble. Even the girl watching from the side could not hold back an exclamation of pure shock. A deflected sword blast just sliced through a mountain, she thought, utterly amazed. Jicheon puffed up with pride at the display of his power, letting out a satisfied chuckle. Right, he said. I was wondering why you were so arrogant. You actually had something to back it up. But that petty trick will only shorten your lifespan, he warned, still confident. He raised his sword again, preparing for another devastating strike. Then a surge of purple energy erupted from Jicheon, even more powerful than before. Now, try taking this one. You'll realize just how pathetic your little tricks really are. But in an instant, Kim closed the distance and placed his hand on Jicheon's lower abdomen. Goodness, you are a very chatty customer. Manager Kim placed his hand on Jicheon's abdomen and said, a truth that no one in the Central Plains would ever believe. Jicheon could only manage a confused huh. The heavenly demon, Wi Jicheon, hailed as the absolute strongest under the heavens, just had his dantian breached by a nameless nobody. Jicheon's mind raced. I missed his movements. Now then, let us begin the collection, Manager Kim said with a smile. It'll sting a bit, he added casually. Jicheon's eyes flew open, not yet grasping what was about to happen to him. A golden energy flowed from Manager Kim's hand into Jicheon's body, seeping through every meridian. Jia! Jicheon screamed as a sensation like his innards were being ripped out whole. His entire body glowed yellow as the energy surged through him. The great art of energy absorption? And, no, my internal energy is being sucked away, he cried out in horror. Jicheon howled in agony, a raw and desperate scream tearing from his throat. Customer, relax your body. You'll suffer chi deviation at this rate, Manager Kim said in a sing-song voice. You fucking bastard. Do you know how hard I worked to accumulate this energy? Jicheon roared through the pain. Tell you what, I will be generous, Manager Kim said with a cheeky grin. All the impure chi built up in your body, he began, his eyes glowing. I will extract that for you too. By now, Jicheon looked like he was withering away, his vitality draining fast. The sky, once dark and heavy, began to clear as sunlight seeped through the clouds. Jicheon's knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the stone floor, too weak to stand. His body was now shriveled, his eyes empty and hollow. A faint, ah, escaped his lips. You've worked hard, customer. Debt collection complete, Manager Kim announced cheerfully. Manager Kim put on his most professional smile and said, Please use our services again next time. We love you, valued customer. Classic loan shark marketing. Kim held out his business card right in front of Jicheon's face, but the once mighty heavenly demon was now too shriveled and shaky to even move. All Jicheon could manage was a trembling whisper. You son of a cheech. He cursed before collapsing entirely, his life's worth of internal energy completely drained. Talk about a brutal repossession. Manager Kim left his business card behind for Jicheon and walked away. The card reading Continental Bank's Manager Kim. We shift to Sichuan Province, at the pavilion of returning guests. A group of drinkers huddle around a table, and one of them leans in with a juicy rumor. He lowers his voice, talking about how those demonic cult scumbags have apparently stopped their advance. The others react in disbelief, with, What? Is that true? And no way. Flying around. The gossip continues. It has already been 3 days, and they have not moved an inch from the entrance of Sichuan. Are you saying the great Wi Jicheon actually got scared? One drinker scoffs and calls it nonsense, asking who Jicheon is. Another starts telling the tale. Over a decade ago, that man slaughtered over 100 masters from the righteous factions all by himself. He is the monster among monsters. They debate wildly. Some think it is a trap to lower their guard. Others joke that the heavenly demon might be reaching enlightenment right on the battlefield. Stop talking crazy, one mutters. The narrator explains that the momentum of the demonic cult, led by the heavenly demon Wi Jicheon, was fierce enough to swallow the Central Plains in one breath. Absolutely unstoppable. It is a completely baffling situation. The government forces did not block them, and the 9 great sects and 1 union did not form an alliance. For absolutely no reason at all, the massive demonic army just stopped in its tracks. A drinker wonders aloud, could he have fallen into chi deviation? Everyone imagined some grand conspiracy or hidden fortuitous encounter that would go down in Murim history. But then one guy, holding his cup of booze, throws out the most ridiculous theory. By any chance, could they have run out of travel funds? I mean, mobilizing that many demonic practitioners costs a fortune. The whole table bursts out laughing. The great demonic cult cannot fight a war because they are broke? That is the funniest joke all year. Have not you heard they have mountains of gold and silver? The same guy shrugs and says, Well, I am just saying, things are hard for us when we do not have money too. His buddy shoots back, that is because it is us. Another drinker jokes, The great heavenly demon stopped because of money? You might as well say he saw a carp in the Yellow River, got moved to tears, and forbade all killing. The laughter continues. Nearby, listening to the drunks, banter from a corner table, Kim just smiles quietly. Rihwa agrees with a knowing smile. I know, right? Rihwa nods with a knowing smile. remarking that Kim understands how money holds power over humans, ghosts, and even the demonic cult leader himself. A waiter arrives at their table, cheerfully asking if they are ready to order since the ingredients are super fresh today. Rihwa perks up, reminding the manager that he promised to treat her to a big meal this time, claiming her stomach is practically glued to her back after the trip. Kim crosses his arms with a serious look and calls out, "Miss Mac." She immediately responds, "Yes." He reminds her that the expense account is not her personal piggy bank, especially since they received internal energy this time, not cash. So, as he explains, they are currently operating at a loss. With a fake friendly smile, Kim then orders 2 bowls of their cheapest noodles, making Rihwa groan in frustration. 2 bowls of the cheapest noodles with a few measly greens are set on the table. Rihwa calls him a cheapskate and hopes he goes bald, but Kim calmly replies that frugality has no correlation with hair loss, earning a teach from her. Picking up a thin noodle, Rihwa asks where the next sucker they are meeting is. Kim corrects her professionally, saying they are not suckers but clients. She rolls her eyes and asks where this precious client lives. With a mysterious smile, he answers, Manhwa. The scene shifts to a moonlit night in Huayan County, Shaanxi Province, home of the #1 sect on the continent. A bustling market appears, crowded with people under glittering lanterns. Kim and Rihwa arrive at their destination, and Kim states simply, "Well, we are here." He adds with a hint of irony, "This is our precious workplace for today." 2 guards block their path, shouting, "Halt!" One guard announces that unauthorized personnel are prohibited, questioning why a young man and woman would come to such a remote place at night. Rihwa looks surprised and mutters, "Sentries? In a shabby shack like this?" She wonders out loud, "What kind of place is this?" Kim steps forward and asks the guards if they can go inside, saying they have business there. But the guard demands an entry token, stating not just anyone can enter. Kim just smiles and says he does not have anything like that. The guards find his suspicious behavior alarming and immediately draw their swords in defense. One guard yells at them to get lost while they still can, threatening to draw blood. Kim lets out a long, weary sigh. Then, completely unfazed, he walks right toward the guard and calmly asks, "You look like someone who has killed a few people. Am I right?" His expression turns cold as he declares, "This will not do. You guys need to be taught a lesson." The guard roars back that he is the type who will not shed tears until he sees his own coffin, then lunges forward. The guard leaps into the air, sword raised, ready to strike Kim down. But Kim just stands there with his hands clasped behind his back, completely unbothered. With a single flick of his hand, Kim twists the guard's arm out of shape in an instant. The guard's face contorts in agony from the broken arm. He crumples to the ground, clutching his arm and crying out in pain, making the other guard hesitate. But the second guard charges in anyway, yelling, "Why, you bastard?" He unleashes his ultimate technique, the poisonous snake sword art. Poison Fang Flash, aiming his sword straight at Kim. Kim casually catches the blade between 2 fingers, completely neutralizing the attack. With another flick of his hand, he shatters the guard's sword into countless pieces. The guard stands frozen, staring at his shattered blade in disbelief. Kim then fires palm strikes into multiple points on the guard's body. The guard cries out in agony and collapses. Rihwa watches the entire scene without flinching. Rihwa watches it all, still unable to figure out Kim no matter how long she observes. She has seen plenty of martial arts in her family, but the manager's style does not belong to either the orthodox or unorthodox factions. And not long ago, he charged straight into the demonic cult alone and suppressed the heavenly demon without showing an ounce of fear or hesitation. An expert like that should be famous in the martial world. There is no way she would not know him. What exactly is Manager Kim's true identity? Should she just ask him directly? But no, he probably would not answer, even if she asked. After all, he has not told her anything so far. Kim glances over at the guy with the broken arm. He casually adds a few more palm strikes to the man's back for good measure. Now both guards are sprawled out on the ground, completely out cold. Rihwa asks if he is dead, but Kim explains he just severed the tendons in their limbs. They will not be able to harm commoners ever again. Then he orders Rihwa to clean them up and stash them in the corner before following him. She points at herself in disbelief, but he insists it has to be her. It'd be troublesome if someone saw them. Rihwa drags the guards away, muttering under her breath about her evil boss and calling him a bald manager. Kim pushes open the door to what looks like an abandoned shrine, dark and covered in cobwebs, and steps inside. He hums thoughtfully, noting the stairs leading down to a basement beneath the floor. Without a word, he quietly descends into the underground. Down below, The bright lantern light is a stark contrast to the pitch-black entrance above. The place is packed with people playing mahjong. Shouts fill the air, someone claiming it is even this time, another betting their wrist on it. Another player grumbles about never making any money playing like that, then curses in frustration. Rihwa finally catches up and calls out to Kim. He acknowledges her arrival and says he'll match that. Kim tells her to try moving faster, that she is always so sluggish. She shoots back that he could have helped her clean up before saying that. Rihwa looks around and asks, "Is not this a gambling parlor? Is this our workplace this time?" Kim grins and says, "Bingo." Rihwa pinches her nose, complaining about the foul air, but Kim just smiles and says the smell of money is always a bit foul. The two of them head deeper inside. Cheers erupt from the gambling tables. Someone's hit it 3 times in a row, and the crowd is going wild about the young man's incredible luck. Kim calmly points him out. There he is, our client. Rihwa's gaze locks onto a man playing mahjong. She notices the plum blossom emblem embroidered on his robe. She gasps. Plum blossom emblem. And no way. The Manhwa sect? Our sucker this time is a Manhwa sect disciple? She blurts out. Kim gives her a professional look and says, "Miss Mack, I told you earlier. They are not suckers, they are clients. Typical high-class sales mindset, always believing in your service and treating the customer like royalty, even when your product is garbage." He introduces the man, Cheong Sang, the direct disciple of the Manhwa sect leader and the youngest plum blossom swordsman in history. His name alone shook the Murim in this vicinity, but his gambling skills are those of a sucker. Rihwa calls him out. Unbelievable. You told me not to call the client a sucker, Kim replies smoothly. I am saying his skills are those of a sucker. Do not nitpick my words. More importantly, Rihwa asks if that information is accurate about Cheong Sang's gambling skills being those of a sucker. Watching from the side, Rihwa mutters, "From what I can see, his win rate so far is..." She trails off, unsure. Cheong Sang slams down a tile and announces, "I will match that and raise you 10 yang." He shouts at his opponent, "Show him." His opponent flips his tiles with a satisfying clatter. A senior brother pats Cheong Sang on the back, cheering that their junior brother won again. Cheong Sang laughs, scooping up the winnings and proudly declaring victory once more. From her seat across the room, Rihwa notes that he won again. She observes his awkward hand movements and stiff expression, noting he definitely looks like a sucker, but wonders if he is just incredibly lucky. Kim mutters that luck would be fine, if only it stopped there. He then asks Miss Mack if she knows what the scariest thing at a gambling table is, catching her off guard. At Cheong Sang's table, his senior brother praises him endlessly, saying he is doing amazing and might sweep the whole parlor. Cheong Sang boasts that the tiles are sticking perfectly to his hands today. Kim, however, watches Cheong Sang's opponent and says that right now is the critical moment when he is making these sloppy wins. Rihwa notices a strange look on the opponent's face and starts to grow suspicious. Manager Kim's words hit like a curse. The tide of the game, which seemed like a stroke of fortune, begins to twist subtly. The opponent shouts, "Clatter," as he slams down his tile. The opponent grins, announcing he has won this time with a cheerful heave-ho. Cheong Sang's senior brother sighs, saying he lost by a single point. What a shame. Cheong Sang laughs it off, saying no one wins all the time, and that pot was small anyway. Kim notes that he started losing small pots, but soon began losing the big ones by a hair's breadth. Cheong Sang gets excited, thinking he has won with a really good hand. His opponent stacks up the bets and says his hand is higher by a single point. Cheong Sang flips his tiles, shouting, "How about this?" The opponent reveals his hand, saying with relief that he is a little higher again. His opponent chuckles. "Now I am feeling sorry. I keep winning by a single point." He scoops up the money with a smug grin, saying his luck is just a little better today, while Cheong Sang seethes in frustration. Getting beaten by a single point over and over? That messes with your head. Cheong Sang's logic was completely fried. His senior brothers try to pull him away, saying it is not his day, and they should head back. But Cheong Sang pulls out his last stack of cash, ready to chase his losses. A classic gambler's mistake. The crowd gasps as he stakes his entire fortune in one go. Talk about going all in. He mutters, "This time, it is a sure thing. My gut is telling me so." Oh, the overconfidence. Spoiler alert. He lost again. Now he is just sitting there, slumped and miserable. His buddies laugh awkwardly and make their exit, claiming urgent business. And just like that, Cheong Sang is left alone at the gambling table, drowning in his losses. That is when Kim and Rihwa stand up and walk over. Game time. Inside a dark corner of the gambling den, Cheong Sang sat hunched over, tugging at his hair in sheer frustration. He muttered to himself, convinced he'd lost his mind. No, he must have been insane to blow his entire fortune. If he went back empty-handed, his master would beat him worse than a stray dog on a scorching summer day. As he wallowed in panic, Kim and Rihwa quietly approached from behind. With a cheerful grin, Kim asked if the client happened to need some quick cash. He rattled off the perks like a slick salesman. No collateral, same-day approval. Continental Bank was here to help. Cheong Sang's eyes went wide as the name hit him like a freight train. He stammered, barely able to process what they meant. Continental Bank. Quick cash. No collateral loans. Wait, were these guys? He finally blurted out the obvious. Loan sharks. Kim just smiled and said they could call him whatever they wanted. He simply offered help to those in need of fast cash. Cheong Sang's hand shot to his sword, his instincts screaming danger as he faced the two strangers. He squared his shoulders and declared that anyone daring to offer a private loan to a plum-blossom swordsman of the great Manhwa sect must have a few spare lives lying around. Kim let out a hearty laugh, claiming there was a misunderstanding, and calmly pulled a thick stack of cash from his inner pocket. Cheong Sang's eyes bugged out. Kim shrugged off Cheong Sang's status entirely, saying it did not matter to him one bit whether he was a Manhwa sect disciple or a plum-blossom swordsman. Instead, he pointed out that Cheong Sang needed this money. He should win back everything he'd lost. Cheong Sang's mind raced. This guy did not care that he was a Manhwa sect disciple. Groaning, he admitted to himself that if only he had that money, he could turn everything around. Kim just smiled and held up a contract filled with absurd clauses, all in favor of manager Kim. Naturally, even mentioning that anyone who reads contracts closely will surely be astounded. He explained, the process was dead simple. Just sign the contract, and the cash was his, immediately. Kim continued smoothly, and the interest rate is very reasonable too. Cheong Sang reached out and took the contract from Kim's hand, his mind already racing with thoughts of winning back his losses. Without a second thought, he grabbed a brush and signed the loan agreement, sealing his fate. He handed the signed contract back to Kim and said, "There, I signed it. Now hand it over quickly, that money." Cheong Sang was practically grinning, thinking he'd scored a sweet deal. "An excellent choice, client. Approval complete," Kim replied with a sly smile. Cheong Sang snatched the cash from Kim, tossed the IOU aside, and darted back into the gambling den without a backward glance. Rihwa picked up the discarded IOU and muttered, "His expression is completely unhinged, is not it? To think he'd run off without even looking back." Then she turned to Kim and asked, "By the way, manager, that Manhwa sect disciple became a client this time. Of course, gambling is bad, but it is not like he committed acts as wicked as the heavenly demon, right?" Rihwa mused. Kim shot back, "Miss Mac, do you think I pick my clients based on whether they are from the orthodox or unorthodox faction?" "Oh my, was that not it?" she replied with mock surprise. "It is not orthodox or unorthodox. It does not matter. They are all just martial artists to me anyway," Kim stated flatly. "What is important is whether or not they have what I need. That is all there is to it." Suddenly, Rihwa noticed a group of people heading their way. Turned out, those gatekeepers from earlier had called in backup. The bald-headed thug barked, "Is it those bastards?" "See, that is right, boss," another answered. Kim sighed. "You should have cleaned up properly, Miss Mac." Rihwa snapped back. "You told me to just move them to a corner out of sight. Why did not you tell me to bury them in the ground instead?" The bald leader stepped forward. "My name is Jang Mo of the Poisonous Snake Faction. I heard you messed with my boys. State your affiliation and your name." Kim smiled. "Continental Bank, Manager Kim." Rihwa muttered, "Jang Mo? Not hairless." Jang Mo thought, "Continental Bank? Never heard of it. He is probably some guy who picked up third-rate martial arts somewhere. This arrogant bastard, acting all brazen without an ounce of fear. Does he not know this establishment is managed by the Poisonous Snake Faction?" Kim just scoffed. "Do I need to know that?" Jang Mo barked orders to his boys. "Cut off one of their limbs each. Killing them would bring bad luck to our business." The whole gang shouted, "Yes, boss," and charged forward in unison, classic goon squad energy. One thug leaped up with his sword, ready to bring it down on Kim's head. In the blink of an eye, Kim kicked the guy's leg, snapping it like a twig. The thug lost control and face-planted hard into the dirt, instant karma. Another thug came at him sword first, yelling, "This bast." Kim effortlessly sidestepped the strike, making it look like a warm-up stretch. Then he slipped behind the guy and landed a palm strike square on his back. Screams filled the air. "Gah! Save me," while the ones still standing started getting cold feet. Even Jang Mo began to sweat after seeing Kim's little demo. Every single thug who had jumped in was now on the ground, unable to get back up. Jang Mo's mind raced. This many people in just a single breath. A monster. Is he? He thought, now thoroughly terrified. But despite knowing Kim was crazy strong, Jang Mo swallowed his fear and spoke up. You are pretty good for a young lad. He stepped in front of Kim. If you kneel and apologize right now. But Kim did not look worried at all, which only made Jang Mo sweat harder. Then Kim flexed his hand and delivered a palm strike to Jang Mo's gut, sending him flying. Jang Mo coughed up blood and rolled across the ground, completely wrecked. Seeing their boss down, the remaining thugs screamed, "Monster!" and scattered like roaches. Kim sighed, then his face turned dead serious as he warned, I am letting you off the hook just for today. If I hear rumors of another gambling parlor opening up in Hwayong County, things will get really troublesome for you. Now then, Miss Mac, it is your turn next. Rihwa blinked in confusion. What? He gestured at the pile of groaning bodies. Clean these up. As she dragged the thugs away, Rihwa grumbled, Bald manager! Evil boss! While Kim just watched, amused. Anyway, I wonder if our client managed to win some money, Kim mused, glancing up at the moonlight. A true salesman always worries about his customers. Meanwhile, back inside the gambling den, Cheong Sang was already deep in another mahjong match. Judging by his utterly defeated face, he was on the verge of losing yet again. He slammed the table and roared, What the hell? Does this make any sense? I lost 5 times in a row by a single point. You sons of bitches. You all planned this, did not you? He screamed, veins popping. His opponent just laughed. Haha, I am baffled as well. But what can you do? You are just out of luck. He added with a smirk. Do not tell me you are planning to throw a tantrum just because you lost a gamble. An esteemed disciple of the great Manhwa sect, Cheong Sang clenched his fists in silent rage. Kyuko, even the great Manhwa, is nothing at the gambling table. Ha ha ha! The thugs jeered, laughing their heads off. Outside the den, the moon hung full and serene in the silent night until the door burst open with a bang. Cheong Sang stormed out and nearly ran straight into Kim, who smiled faintly. Oh, client? Are you leaving already? Cheong Sang's face lit up with desperate relief. Thank goodness, you are still here. Money! Please lend me some more money, he begged. Kim feigned surprise. Excuse me? Are you talking about an additional loan? With the instinct of a true gambler, Cheong Sang dove straight in. That is right. I mean it this time. Just one more time. Lend me money one more time, and I will win it all back and repay you. With your credit score, I can lend you as much as you want, but I think we'll need a little collateral. Collateral! Cheong Sang started frantically patting himself down. He pulled out a jade pendant and stammered, How about this? It is the Mount Hua jade pendant my master bestowed upon me. Cheong Sang was already out of his mind. He had handed over the pendant, something he would never have parted with under normal circumstances. That is more than enough. Here is your additional loan. Thank you! Cheong Sang grabbed the cash and practically dove back into the den. He snatched the cash and bolted straight back inside the gambling den. 2 hours later, Kim was still standing outside, waiting patiently. The exact same scene played out again like a carbon copy. Cheong Sang had lost once more and came running out to find Kim. He barreled into Kim, gasping, More. Lend me more. Swearing on the name of the Mount Hua sect, he promised to repay generously with interest if he won this round. Kim just told him to calm down, saying, We trust you. So Kim gave him a third loan, and Cheong Sang lost again. Fuck, he muttered. A fourth loan followed the same pattern. Cheong Sang ran out. Kim handed over more cash like clockwork. Then came the fifth loan, and the guy still lost miserably. Inside the den, he slammed the table in fury, screaming about his unbelievable bad luck. Cheong Sang's shouts echoed all the way outside. Just then, Kim decided to call it a day. Well then, our work for today ends here. Let us clock out, Miss Mac. Rihwa looked confused. What? See clock out? What about collecting the money we lent him? Seeing him scream like that, I think he lost again. Kim yawned and said, It is fine. They've always said sauces and debts are best when left to age. Rihwa pressed further. What are you going to do if he later feigns ignorance and claims he never borrowed anything? Or what if he just tells you to cut his belly open and take it instead? That is even better, Kim replied, without missing a beat. Rihwa was taken aback. Excuse me, because I can just grant his wish and slice that smug belly of his wide open, he said calmly. The scene shifts to a serene, sunlit landscape, Mount Hua sect, with its traditional buildings and cherry blossoms in full bloom. In his dimly lit room, Cheong Sang sits on the bed, his head hanging low as he broods over the gambling losses from the night before. Frantic now, he grabs his hair and mutters curses under his breath. Total panic mode. I was crazy. What the hell did I do? He thinks, already drowning in regret. He took out a private loan under the Manhwa sect's name, and to make things worse, he handed over the purple cloud jade pendant, the one his master gave him, as collateral. If I get caught, it will not end with just expulsion. Master will separate my flesh from my bones himself. He shudders. Suddenly, a knock at the door breaks the silence. Knock, knock. A voice calls out, Senior brother, are you there? The sect leader is looking for you. Struggling to pull himself together, he stammers, before trailing off. The scene cuts to Cheong Sang standing before the sect leader. Master is? He starts, but the man before him cuts him off. Cheong Sang. A title card appears. Manhwa sect leader, perfected Hayeonjong. Kneeling and trembling, Cheong Sang manages. Yes, sect leader. The guilt from last night's gambling is eating him alive. Hayeonjong gets straight to the point. You skipped morning training today. That is unlike you. Have you been slacking off lately? Cheong Sang apologizes, claiming he is feeling under the weather, but internally he is screaming, I could not care less about morning training when I was up all night worrying about my gambling debts. Sect leader clicks his tongue, disappointed. Think, a plum blossom swordsman of the great Manhwa sect cannot even manage his own health properly. He reaches into his robe. Hayeonjong tosses a small box to Cheong Sang. Cheong Sang catches it, surprised. A wooden box? He thinks, examining it. It gives off a faint scent of medicine, he notes. This is the plum blossom pellet. Take it and recover your strength, Hayeonjong says. Cheong Sang's eyes go wide. The plum blossom pellet. Cheong Sang picks up the box and opens it. Eyes wide, he cannot believe it. The real plum blossom pellet, the one every martial artist dreams of. Instead of a harsh scolding, his master gave him a precious spiritual elixir. Does that mean he did not get caught staying up all night gambling? Humbled, Cheong Sang bows deeply. Sect leader, I will pray for you with all my heart. Hayeonjong smiles warmly. If you fall, there is no future for Manhwa either. Now get some rest. Cheong Sang feels a rare wave of emotion from his master's genuine care. But once outside, his mind immediately shifts. If I sell this, maybe I can buy back the jade pendant. He instantly feels like trash for calculating that in his head. I am worse than a beast, he mutters to himself. Then he notices a crowd gathering outside, all commoners looking up at Manhwa. An old woman bows. O Taoist, please watch over us. A Manhwa disciple smiles and says, Please stand up. These villagers came to borrow the miraculous energy of the sect, their eyes full of trust. They carry carefully wrapped rice cakes and fruits, offering them with reverence. The pure and noble scene of the Taoist sect unfolds before him. Cheong Sang watches the people, his guilt growing heavier. He grits his teeth. Damn it. Then he picks up the box containing the plum blossom pellet. Yeah, this is an unavoidable choice. I will sell it to a pawn shop. Cheong Sang rationalizes his plan. Taking the plum blossom pellet would only recover some strength, but selling it could buy back the jade pendant. Compared to losing his master's gift forever, is not selling the elixir a lighter offense. He'll put out the urgent fire first, then train to death to bring glory to Manhwa. Yeah, that is the true Taoist way, he convinces himself, feeling a spark of motivation again. He is totally going to get back on track. Once I resolve this, just this one time, I will never go near a gambling parlor again. Seriously. The scene shifts to a peaceful night with a full moon hanging high and silent. A shadow quickly leaps over the wall under the moonlight. Turns out, Cheong Sang is sneaking out to gamble again. Classic addict behavior. Master, I am sorry. As he walks, a voice calls out, Fellow Taoist Cheong Sang. Cheong Sang spins around, startled, and sees a figure behind him. It is his senior brother asking, Where are you going so late at night?
Damn it.
Senior brother is on night watch at this hour. He panics internally. Cheong Sang greets him politely. Thank you for your hard work, senior brother. But inside, he is cursing his luck. It had to be senior brother Cheong Yeom, famously uncompromising even within Manhwa. Cheong Yeom cuts through the formalities. Skip the pleasantries. Where are you going this late at night? Cheong Sang stammers. Well, I felt a bit stuffy, so I came out for some fresh air. Fresh air? Cheong Yeom repeats, unconvinced. In the middle of the night, by climbing over the wall, Cheong Yeom eyes him suspiciously. Damn it. Did I make up too flimsy of an excuse? Cheong Sang panics. Cheong Sang instinctively clutches his chest. hiding the box. Cheong Yeom notices the odd gesture and looks surprised. What are you hiding inside your robes? It is nothing. Cheong Sang waves dismissively. Show it to me, Cheong Yeom insists. Cheong Yeom quickly reaches into Cheong Sang's robe and pulls out the black box. Cheong Yeom quickly opened the box and gasped, "This is not this, the plum blossom pellet. Where did you get such a precious spiritual medicine?" Cheong Yeom demanded. "That is, Master bestowed it upon me," Cheong Sang stammered. The sect leader, Jinyo, muttered, clearly impressed. Cheong Yeom burst out laughing. As expected, Master's discerning eye is incredible. "Here, take it." He handed the box back. "Thank you," Cheong Sang managed. "He recognized your talent." "Why are you taking this outside in the middle of the night?" Cheong Yeom pressed. "That is." Cheong Sang's mind raced. "What should I make up?" "The gazes of my fellow disciples are too burdensome." Cheong Sang laughed nervously. "So I was trying to take it alone at night." Cheong Yeom was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. "So your suspicious movements stemmed from your broad mind that is considerate of your martial brothers." Cheong Yeom exclaimed, "Forgive me, fellow Taoist Cheong Sang, for misunderstanding your heart as vast as Mount Tai." Cheong Sang stood frozen at his senior brother's 180-degree emotional flip before forcing a laugh. "Whatever, I forgive you." "Great, then I will stand guard for you." Cheong Yeom clapped him on the shoulder. "Take it right here, right now." "Right here, right now?" Cheong Sang repeated in disbelief. "Of course. The plum blossom pellet takes effect the moment you ingest it, so it is best if I stay by your side and watch over your energy." Cheong Yeom beamed. "Well, I am all ready. Hurry up and take a seat," Cheong Yeom urged. Cheong Sang sensed trouble and mentally cursed. "This stubborn old fool? Why the hell is he acting so bright and cheerful?" "I appreciate your consideration, senior brother, but I am used to training quietly by myself." Cheong Sang tried to wiggle out. "Nonsense," Cheong Yeom roared. "The plum blossom pellet's energy is so strong that you could fall into chi deviation if you make even the slightest mistake. Why are you being so picky between martial brothers? Hurry up and start," Cheong Yeom insisted. "Damn it. This should not be happening," Cheong Sang thought. "But, senior brother, I have not been able to compose my mind and body yet. Then I will help guide your true chi. My muscles are a little sore from yesterday's training. I will loosen them up for you. Suddenly my stomach hurts a little. Go take a shit and come back." Cheong Yeom was relentless. After making up 101 excuses, Cheong Sang still could not escape Cheong Yeom. "I am fucked," he thought. Finally, Cheong Sang had no choice but to open the pill box and prepare to take it. Trembling, he brought the pill to his lips and swallowed. Then, with his senior brother's help, he circulated his chi to absorb the pill's energy. His senior brother gasped in awe, noticing how incredibly clear Cheong Sang's energy had become. As expected, Master's discerning eye was not wrong. "Congratulations, junior brother," Cheong Yeom cheered. After fully absorbing the pill, Cheong Sang stood up abruptly, a cold, detached expression on his face. "Thank you for your grace, senior brother. Thanks to you, I was able to devote myself even further," he declared. "All of this is thanks to your grace, senior brother," Cheong Sang added, forcing a bright smile. Later, Cheong Sang sat alone under a tree, utterly devastated. The plum blossom pellet was now in his stomach, and he could no longer sell it. "It is over," he thought. Meanwhile, the medicine was working so damn well, he could not believe it. Now there was absolutely no way to scrape the money together. The debt collectors would come looking for him soon, and all his shameful secrets would be laid bare. Expulsion was certain, but then a sudden realization hit him. Wait, hold on a second. He sprang to his feet and drew his sword under the moonlight. Clearly, a new plan was forming. A debt only exists if there is a creditor. So what if the person coming to collect the money were to disappear? He mused, a dangerous glint in his eyes. At best, they were just loan sharks. Who would miss them? As a plum blossom swordsman, he could get rid of them without a trace if he put his mind to it. Conveniently, his internal energy was overflowing thanks to the pill's effects. Right. Why should I repay the money? Cheong Sang questioned himself. When I can just kill them, he finished with a sinister smile. Cheong Sang set off to hunt down those loan sharks, hoping he would not find them. But honestly, if he did, I would be more worried for the debtors. He stopped in front of the Huayang Inn. It is here. Cheong Sang told them they'd be staying in room 5 and to come there if they wanted to pay back the money. The debtor, terrified, just begged for the loan. He quietly opened the door and slipped inside. The answer was simple from the start. A debt disappears along with the creditor. That is all there is to it. He looked up at the sky, feeling the weight of his decision. Determined, Cheong Sang vowed to take care of them cleanly, get his jade pendant back, and forget everything. He hesitated for a moment, Standing in front of room 5, he heard voices, a man and a woman, coming from inside. Faint, but certain. It is those two, no doubt. He gripped his sword, ready to strike. One move, and it is over. Sorry it has to be this way, he thought, but at least you two will not be lonely. You'll die together. He stomped the floor, releasing a powerful surge of energy. He unleashed his skill, slashing at the door. Plum Blossom Sword Art, 7th move. Falling Flower Scatter. The slash was so powerful, it tore the entire room apart. When the explosion settled, nothing remained but devastation. The whole room had been sliced away. It is over. He heard something snap inside his chest. Regret? Guilt? No. Instead, it felt refreshing. Like the hand strangling his neck had disappeared, he could finally breathe. Voices erupted from outside. What is going on? That sound. I think it is from the 2nd floor. Cheong Sang stepped into the rubble he'd just created, muttering. The jade pendant. He rummaged through the debris, frantically searching. Found it. He finally spotted the jade pendant lying in the wreckage. Once he had it in hand, he quickly slipped away into the night. He sprinted as fast as he could, desperate to put as much distance as possible between him and that inn. As he ran, he let out a weird laugh, his first time killing someone, and honestly, that reaction was a little unsettling. It is over. It is finally over. A wave of relief washed over him, like waking up from a nightmare. He felt an overwhelming sense of relief just from surviving, mixed with pure joy that everything was back where it belonged. But maybe that is why he slipped up. Huayin County's streets have eyes even at night, and normally he'd have taken a secluded side path back. Not tonight. Lost in the joy of being free from his debts, he made a rookie mistake. He never even noticed someone was watching him. Back at Manhwa sect, the night was peaceful. For now. In his room, Cheong Sang held the jade pendant up, a bright smile spreading across his face, now that he had his precious item back. Yeah, this is all I need. He sighed contentedly. But then came a sudden knock at the door. Now I can forget everything that happened today, and knock knock. Are you there, Cheong Sang? His eyes went wide. Wait, this voice. Martial Uncle Hyunhyo? He thought, recognizing the gravelly tone. The Mount Hua sect elder, perfected Hyunhyo, stepped into the room with a stern look. You are up quite late. Well, yes, my training was not going well, so Cheong Sang stammered. Is that so? Hyunhyo replied, his eyes narrowing. Hyunhyo turned to look out the window, the moonlight casting a pale glow across his stern face. I heard there was a huge commotion in Huayin County tonight. An inn was smashed to pieces, he said, his tone heavy. Then he fixed his gaze on Cheong Sang and added, and to top it off, it was done with the Plum Blossom Sword Art. Show me your hand. Excuse me? Cheong Sang stammered, caught off guard. Wielding a sword always leaves traces, Hyunhyo stated flatly, and Cheong Sang's eyes went wide. Trembling, Cheong Sang slowly extended his hands, shaking like leaves in the wind. The moment Hyunhyo saw Cheong Sang's arm, he pointed his sword at him, sending a chill of pure fear down the boy's spine. Answer me. Why on earth did you do such a thing? Hyunhyo demanded, his voice cracking with anger. And martial uncle. What do you mean? Cheong Sang tried to play dumb, but Hyunhyo was not having it. Do you intend to feign ignorance until the end? I saw you walking back from the inn, Hyunhyo said, his eyes boring into him. You came back via the main road, while smiling. To kill civilians with the Plum Blossom Sword Art. It shames me that you are a disciple of Mount Hua, he spat. Cheong Sang dropped to his knees instantly. Rihwa, I have committed a crime worthy of death, he confessed. I was gambling. I gambled. As soon as those words left his mouth, the rest poured out like a dam breaking. The thrill of winning a huge sum at the gambling table. The consecutive defeats that followed. The madness of the moment he bet his master's jade pendant. And then, the bewitching woman who appeared in the back alley. And the man with sinister eyes. I meant to pay them back. I really did. But I kept losing after that, so the debt kept growing. At the very end. The only thought left in my mind was that I had to get the jade pendant back somehow. So you killed them? Hyunhyo's voice was ice, thinking your debt would disappear if you killed the loan sharks. Cheong Sang kowtowed frantically, sobbing. I am sorry, martial uncle. I have committed a crime worthy of death. Please forgive me just this once. I will gladly accept any punishment, he begged, still bowing. Seeing the genuine remorse, Hyunhyo's expression softened. He sheathed his sword and said quietly, Stand up. Cheong Sang looked up, trembling. Martial uncle, he whispered, fear and hope mingling in his voice. A rising star of Mount Hua, Hyun-hyo declared firmly, cannot be broken like this. I will turn a blind eye to this incident, he said, his tone resolute yet heavy with unspoken care. Cheong Sang's eyes welled up. And martial uncle, he choked out, overwhelmed. This does not mean you have the right to kill innocent commoners. However, Hyun-hyo paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. It is because there is a greater cause known as Mount Hua. Sobbing openly now, Cheong Sang cried, Martial uncle, thank you, Martial uncle. Hyun-hyo then asked, almost offhandedly, by the way, those people you said you killed, who did you say they were? Cheong Sang blinked. Excuse me. Even though they were loan sharks, Hyun-hyo continued, they surely had not committed crimes worthy of death. We should pray for their souls from Mount Hua. I cannot quite remember their names, but I believe they called themselves Continental Bank, Cheong Sang replied, scratching his head. And the man's name was... Cheong Sang trailed off, trying to recall. Suddenly, Hyun-hyo grabbed Cheong Sang by the collar, his face pale. Cheong Sang gasped, Martial uncle, what is wrong? Cheong Sang stammered, confused and alarmed. Hyun-hyo's voice trembled. Just now. What did you say? Excuse me? That Continental Bank, I said, Cheong Sang repeated, his fear returning. But Hyun-hyo's hands were shaking as he still gripped Cheong Sang's robe, his composure cracking. Hyun-hyo's voice was trembling. See Continental Bank? Did you really say Continental Bank? Cheong Sang nodded frantically. Why, yes, I am certain. What was that man's name? Hyun-hyo demanded, his grip tightening on Cheong Sang's robe. Cheong Sang stammered. It was definitely Manager Kim. He was still crying, the name slipping out like a final nail in the coffin. At the mention of the name Kim, Hyun-hyo froze mid-motion, his eyes widening. He clearly recognized that name, and it was not good news. Without another word, Hyun-hyo bolted out of the room and raced straight to the sect leader's quarters. Talk about urgency. He burst through the door, shouting, "A sect leader!" The panic in his voice was unmistakable. Hyun-jong, still calm and composed, looked up from his desk. Hyun-hyo, what is with this commotion in the middle of the night? He held his brush steady, unimpressed. We have a huge problem, sect leader. Hyun-hyo cried out. Hyun-jong clicked his tongue. Tisk, what is going on to make you fuss so much? You are an elder. Have some dignity. Serene mind, he continued calmly, still practicing calligraphy. The tips of your sword and brush must always remain completely still, like clear water and a mirror. But Hyun-hyo was not calming down. Continental Bank has appeared, he shouted, his voice echoing through the room. Hyun-jong gasped, dropping his brush in shock. He turned to face Hyun-hyo, his face suddenly pale. His face drained of color as fear set in. What? He whispered, dread creeping into his voice. Hyun-jong sat at his desk, his face pale as he stammered. Why would the Continental Bank suddenly show up? What does this have to do with our Mount Hua? Hyun-jo blurted out. It is Cheong Sang. He says he killed people from the Continental Bank. And Hyun-jong's eyes went wide. Hyun-jong demanded. Is that the truth? Are they truly dead? But Hyun-hyo replied, that has not been confirmed yet. Hyun-jong's mind raced. Killed them? Someone from the Continental Bank. Hyun-jong slammed his hand on the table and proclaimed, by the authority of the Plum Blossom Command Tablet, I give the order. Summon every single disciple this instant. Hyun-hyo gasped at the sight of the ancient tablet, a sacred symbol of the sect leader used only for the most absolute commands. Hyun-jong continued, bring Cheong Sang here as well. I need to hear every single detail of where, who, and how he killed them. Hyun-hyo stammered, why yes, sect leader, and turned to carry out the order. But then Hyun-hyo paused at the door and asked, sect leader. His hand clenched the doorframe as he whispered, could it really be those two? The Continental War. Now, barely anyone in Mount Hua even recognizes that name. One of those few people is the current sect leader, Hyun-jong. How could he ever forget the sight of a single man turning all of Mount Hua into a wasteland? Hyun-jong's voice wavered. I do not know, but if it really is them, he gritted his teeth and then told Hyun-hyo, hurry. In the night, Hyun-hyo's voice rang through the sect. The very survival of Mount Hua is at stake. All the disciples of Mount Hua gathered, confusion spreading through the crowd. What the hell is going on in the middle of the night? Someone asked. I have no idea. This is the first time I have seen an emergency summons via the Plum Blossom Command Tablet. Disciples murmured among themselves, with some wondering if the demonic cult was invading, and others pointing out that even secular disciples were being called in. "No way, that is impossible," someone muttered. In the history of Manhwa, such an abrupt nighttime summons had never happened unless there was a direct invasion by external forces. And the look on the sect leader's face, a look they had never seen before, sent chills down everyone's spines. His usual gentle demeanor was nowhere to be found. Instead, his expression was cold and hardened. Only that cold, hardened expression remained as he addressed the assembled disciples. Hyunjong's voice cut through the tense silence like a blade as he commanded, "Cheong Sang, step forward." Cheong Sang stepped forward, each foot heavy with dread, knowing that something terrible had happened. He respectfully greeted the sect leader, but before he could finish, Hyunjong suddenly struck him across the face with a stinging slap. "You bastard!" Hyunjong roared. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The sect leader's fury was relentless as he rained blow after blow on Cheong Sang, who crumpled to the ground. "The Continental Bank! You dared to touch someone from the Continental Bank!" Hyunjong's voice thundered as the disciples watched in terror, some whispering among themselves, asking what the Continental Bank even was. Elder Hyunhyo rushed to restrain the sect leader, shouting, "Sect leader, he'll die. He is really going to die at this rate." Hyunjong's reply was as cold as ice. Yes, it would be better if he just died. Several other disciples joined in to restrain the sect leader, pleading, "Sect leader, please, calm down." Hyunjong panted heavily, his rage barely contained. Cheong Sang lay battered and broken on the ground, barely conscious. Hyunjong looked down at him and muttered, You absolute fool. You've ruined Manhwa," he added, his voice heavy with despair. Cheong Sang struggled to kneel, coughing and sputtering blood as he gasped for air. "Master," he choked out, his voice weak, "I know it was wrong of me to gamble and to kill, but I do not understand why you are going this far over who they are. I just do not get it." Hyunjong delivered another brutal slap, shouting, "You brainless idiot," as Cheong Sang reeled from the blow. "Gambling? Killing?" the sect leader thundered. "You think I am reprimanding you for that right now? If you'd slit the throat of some street beggar or a third-rate thug, do you think I would have even blinked?" Cheong Sang clutched his aching face, completely baffled. "Whoa, what?" "Shut up and just answer what I ask," Hyunjong snapped, his patience gone. The sect leader's voice grew heavy as he asked, "Those people from the Continental Bank, are they truly dead? Please, tell me they are dead," he pleaded, desperate for confirmation. Cheong Sang nodded weakly. "Well, yes, that is right, definitely." "The bodies?" Hyunjong pressed. "Did you confirm the bodies?" Cheong Sang hesitated. "Well, probably." Hyunjong grabbed him by the collar, shaking him. "Speak clearly. Did you see with your own eyes that they stopped breathing?" That is," Cheong Sang stammered. "I blew up the entire room with the plum blossom sword art. I assume they must be dead." "Assume? Did you just say assume?" Hyunjong roared. "You did not confirm it personally." The entire room collapsed, so how could they? Cheong Sang started, but another slap cut him short. "You moron!" Hyunjong yelled. "You did not even make sure they were dead. What are you going to do if they are still alive? What are you going to do if they survived?" Hyunjong's voice shook with fear and rage. Cheong Sang felt the punishment was utterly unfair. How could anyone survive a building collapse? That old inn had crumbled completely. The ceiling caved in and the pillars snapped. Even a martial arts master would find it hard to survive that. So how could mere merchants who deal with money survive? He thought, still not understanding the true weight of his actions. But perfected Hyunjong knew better. His experience told him the opposite. It would have been better if you had been crushed and died in that inn with them, Hyunjong said, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. His tone was incredibly cold, devoid of any affection. "No, you should have had your wrists cut off at the gambling den and died in the streets." Hyunjong's voice dropped to a chilling calm, his words cutting deep. If you had, then at least Manhwa would have avoided total annihilation. Only then did Cheong Sang realize the gravity of the situation. He had done something unforgivable. The people he had touched were not just simple debt collectors. They were beings that even the sect leader of the great Manhwa sect trembled in fear of, beings that should never be provoked. Hyunjong's command echoed across the courtyard. From this moment on, Manhwa is on highest alert. Evacuate all guests and prohibit any outsiders from entering. The disciples responded in unison, their voices firm. "Yes, sir." They scattered at once, each disciple rushing to their assigned post. Voices rang out from every direction. Rear gate guard unit, in position. Northern mountain path, sealed off. Front gate, all swordsmen deployed. Yeonjong stood still, his expression heavy with despair as he murmured, "How did it come to this?" He looked up at the night sky and said, "Pray. Pray that they actually died to your pathetic swordsmanship. You better pray with everything you've got." His voice was ice-cold, devoid of any shred of mercy. Suddenly, a sharp cry broke the tense silence. A guard from the front gate shouted, "Reporting from the front gate guard, toward the front mountain path, 2 suspicious individuals are approaching." Cheong Sang's eyes widened in terror as the thought hit him. 2 people. He immediately guessed who it was. The 2 lenders who had given him the money. Under the dark night sky, beneath the falling cherry blossom petals, Kim and Rihwa were walking toward Manhwa. Rihwa muttered with a tired sigh, "It is already dark, and we still have to work. What a hassle. And on top of that, our debtor blew up the inn where we were staying." When Kim and Rihwa arrived, the guard at the gate shouted, "H. Halt. By order of the sect leader, the Mount Hua sect is currently closed to all outsiders. State your names, your sect, and your reason for visiting Mount Hua." Kim let out a sigh, his face utterly expressionless. "Manager Kim, Continental Bank," he announced flatly. "I have come to collect a debt owed in the name of Mount Hua.